All right, so this is your bell ringer from today, the first letter of John, chapter 5. There's two types of sins according to St. John. Somebody puts mortal and venial, and you are wrong. You fail, -5. You thought you knew the answer. So I don't need to look it up. Got him. Got him, Phipps says. Let's see how many people got suckered into it. 2. Okay, no idea what you were reading. 3. 4. All right. Y'all aren't getting credit for the bell ringer. All right. Two types of sin, according to St. Paul, are deadly and non-deadly. There's sins that really destroy your relationship and sins that just weaken it, you know. So to be aware of that, we're going to elaborate more on that. But I know that you Catholic school kids, mortal and venial sin. We're going to go over it just so we're on the same page because we're going to talk about it with regards to confession, of course, but also morality. Make sure we're all on the same page with what it is. But in the Bible, it says deadly and non-deadly, and that'll help you better understand the nature of mortal and venial. All right, so here we are. Vocab next class, which for y'all is Friday. Lesson number 2, mortal and venial sins, is the goal of today's class. There on the board, you see the definition of mortal sin. Of course, serious violation that results in the loss of life. Why? Because the word mortal means death. The word mortal means death. That's what the word means in itself. If you see on the movies these warriors saying, "We are mere mortals," that's them saying that we live and we die. So get over it. But in truth, we know that we are immortal. Our souls are immortal. Our souls live on. So that's what the word means in its root. I'll let you copy that down and then connect it to Adam and Eve.
Is that where the vocab is?
All right, so Adam and Eve are told by God, do not eat the fruit of this tree. What happens if they eat that fruit? What's the consequence that God told them? They would die. They would die. And then Satan comes around in the form of a snake talking to Eve and says, oh, God's just being a big bully. You're not going to die. You're actually going to be more like him and equal to him. He doesn't want that and blah, 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 blah. So Satan says you will not die. Eve goes for it first, shares it with Adam. And what happened when that? What were the effects of that? What? They were naked. They were naked. They discovered their nakedness. Why were they ashamed of their nakedness? Because they were no longer united or trusting of one another. They did not have the same authentic love for one another. So yeah, they experienced that nakedness and shame. What else came about? They hid from God, so they have a broken relationship with God. Very good. And there's a few other pains going on in the woman's womb and in the man's work Did they die? Eventually. They did die, but they didn't die on the spot. And so while their original sin did bring death into the world and they would eventually die, I want you to read that story. I believe the greater emphasis on the story is the spiritual death that came about from Adam and Eve. And they experienced the death. Their life, their meaning, their purpose, their union, their love. Love is life, and their love was gone. Therefore, they they commit that mortal sin and they snuff out that life from within them. So I want you to see it as a spiritual death. And I want you to ask yourself the hard question: are you spiritually alive or are you spiritually dead? There's a lot of great looking, healthy, strong people walking around completely dead inside, completely dead. It may not be all their fault. Sometimes they're victims of sins, but oftentimes it's the sins we commit that don't allow us to experience, love to the full. So that's what a mortal sin is. It puts you in that state of death. And here are your three conditions. Cough, cough. Short answer question. Here are your three conditions for a sin to be mortal. I know Father Mike Schmitz went over this in your Ed puzzle. But I want to talk it out so we can better understand the ins and outs of where we're at spiritually with God. Number one, you of course need to freely consent to the action. For anything, any action to be a sin requires some consenting on your part, freely choosing to do so. So that's kind of obvious. But I want to ask you, in what scenarios might there be where somebody does something wrong and they are not freely consenting to it? Give me a scenario where on the surface it appears like they're doing something wrong, but it's apart from their free will. It's apart from their decision. Tristan. Raping somebody would be a mortal sin. Okay, so if the person is a victim of rape, person forces themselves upon them, they're not really doing an action in that instance. The action is the action of the rapist in that case, which obviously, like we said, is a sin. You're correct. It would appear that they're having sex, but it's being forced upon them. So yes, they are being manipulated. There would be no free will there. So that's a very sad but true example. So there could be external force put upon somebody. Anything else? Any yeah. Where somebody might not be guilty because something outside of them caused them to do it. Nothing? We'll start with drugs. Uh, drugs. Now, there's all kinds of drugs out there. Let's start off with the prescribed drugs, prescription drugs. As a junior classmate of yours said yesterday, Doc gave him some really powerful drugs, which resulted in this person cussing out his entire family for an extended amount of time. The person has no recollection whatsoever of this ever happening. But his family says, oh yeah, it did. The prescribed drugs can impact the person to the point of they're acting apart from their free will. So there's prescription drugs. And so a person wouldn't be guilty for cussing out their family. Now let's go non-prescribed drugs / alcohol. Somebody, and I know you've never seen this, but some people drink alcohol so much that they get a little drunk. and they begin to lose, certain senses, including their sensibility and their ability to think and reason. And there's different kinds of drunks, right? Not that you know this, but you have your violent drunks. They get angry. You've got your sad drunks. They just cry, right? They're just very melancholic. And then you have your lustful, sexual drunks. They're just looking for action from anything. What other kinds? The fun drunk? That would be you. You would be a fun. I know. I'm just saying. Not that you know. I'm just saying you'd be fun. Um, the sick? Oh, they just throw up. They can't handle it. Okay. The crawling? They can't even walk. They just crawl around the party. Yes, sleepy drunks. Okay. Now the good news is most of those, the sleepy drunk, the sad drunk, apparently there's a stoic drunk. They don't do anything. They just remain still. The good news is for those people, those dispositions to alcohol do not cause sins or do not lead them to sin. Of course, you have the violent drunk, you have the sexual, lustful drunk. These are instances, and there might be others. Destructive drunk, they bang things, break things. I guess that would be violent. It is, Lexi. It is. So what?
So whatever you do is just a venus. But isn't it a sin to get drunk and not drink?
Okay. Now I'm glad some of y'all know that it is considered a sin to get drunk. We're going to talk more about it in morality, but I teach a lot of juniors every year that actually do not know that that's a sin. For the purposes of arguing, it is a sin to intentionally get drunk. Yes. The question on the floor is this: once you get drunk and you do your silly things, lustful, violent, are you guilty for those actions?
No.
See, but you're putting yourself in that situation, so I guess it would be more of
You're putting yourself in that situation.
if it was against yourself, then
It's a sin to do that, but listen, you can commit more than one sin in one night. Let's not limit ourselves. We're very powerful.
I feel like if you're drunk, then I feel like that's also drugs.
Sure.
So
Yeah. So you're catching on, I think. So for the student that took prescription drugs, he's not guilty for cussing out his family. But if you drink alcohol and then you cuss out everybody around you, wouldn't that be the same? Wouldn't you say they were not guilty? Caroline says he's not guilty for cussing out the angry drunk, the Cohen. Yes, there's people who unintentionally get drunk. This is very rare, but it exists. Um, for example, my sister, who, because this is being recorded and on the internet, I will not name which of my 6 sisters. One of them came down. Actually, all of them came down for my wedding. God bless them. And my sisters are pretty mature, at least at this point, and they're not too prone to getting drunk, though I'm sure most of them have gotten drunk in their days. One of them came down for my wedding 5 years ago. Just went out to New Orleans. Just gonna go have a couple of drinks. I think this child is of God, my sister. I think she honestly just had a hurricane. I mean, she should know better than to order a drink called the Hurricane. I think she might have had the Hurricane and maybe one other, and it just hit her hard. And she was like, drunk, blacking out, sick for the next 3 days. Yeah. So I honestly don't think that she said, I'm going to go get drunk in New Orleans tonight. I really don't. I think she went to go have a drink, and it was more than she could handle because she's in the South now. And y'all don't mess around with your booze. You like to get drunk, and you like to get drunk fast. So you get my point going? Now, I think in high school, sure, some of y'all are drinking for the first time or regularly for the first time. And I do think most of your drunk cases are probably intentional. Somebody trying to see just how far they can go. But, when you're messing with the hard stuff, stuff stronger, your hard liquors, you can get drunk on accident. most of y'all are probably getting drunk on purpose. You know the risk, and you know that you're drinking too fast. So I don't want to try to make excuses for y'all. So. All right. So I just give you that thought. Is the violent drunk guilty of the violence? He's guilty of getting drunk most of the time. But is he guilty of the violence? Yeah, so Tristan says yes, that he's responsible for the state he put him himself and then everything after that. Of course, the law would hold him guilty if you, of course, drink, drive, and even if you don't cause damage, you just get pulled over. You're guilty there, according to the law, of course. But then if you kill somebody, man, you're going to be in jail for a while as a drunk driver. So there's a couple things. We'll say prescription drugs can limit your consent. Number 2 is mental illness. Mental illness can limit your consent. If you struggle with depression, I'm no psychologist, but the way I understand it works is that the part of your brain that allows you to both feel happiness and hope for a brighter day, there's that area of your brain that lights up when we hope. If that is shut down and not operative, then you're sick. Your mind can take over, and you are not freely committing the act of suicide. It's just the bad result of a bad brain. There's a chance that that mental illness can cause you to commit suicide, but not be guilty of suicide. I've read in the USA Today that it's believed that 90% of suicides are the result of mental illness. Of course, to lighten the load a little bit, you have schizophrenia and bipolar issues causing you to sin. You're not guilty for those. Okay? Okay. I think there's another category. What Gavin wanted to talk about today was what Period 6 brought up. If somebody, you tell me this, does the following person have consent? There's a person, we're going to call him Gunman Joe, who's holding a gun to the head of, that's a bad gun, has a gun to the head, no, we need anonymous names. Bob, I want you to kill Kim. Okay. The question on the floor is this. Is Bob, Gunman Joe, says, Bob, you take care of Kim, or I take care of you? You take care of, this is how we talk in the mafia. You're going to go take care of the business. Or I'm going to take care of you. I'm break your thumbs. So, that being said, does Bob have free will? Does he have consent?
Well, no, he would be guilty because he could have been sober.
Is he sober? He's completely sober. He's a good guy. Completely clean.
No, but he had a choice between himself or Kim.
Yeah.
You're right. So if he killed himself, I guess he is like.
Whether or not you pick Kim or yourself is your call, which means that you, Bob, have free will. In this moment, Gunman Joe with a gun to his head or whatever torture device you want to throw in here to make it all the uglier, Bob remains free. He can choose to die. He can choose to be killed rather than to kill. Now, what should you choose? We're going to talk about that when we get to morality. But even a gun to your head does not limit your free will. Mental illness and certain drugs do. Therefore, do not do drugs and stop drinking. Self-defense, maybe. It depends on the scenario. It depends on how legit Gunman Joe is. If the threat is initial, do you have time to report it to the cops? You have to add to the scenario, but there might be a scenario, yes, where you can simply turn the gun on him if he's in the moment hot, live, ready to shoot, yes, you can take him out of self-defense. But you have to. It's got to be the right circumstance.
I have a question. So say somebody, like a man in your house or something, like beating up your mom, like about to kill her, and you shoot the man.
Yeah, you can do that. Self-defense.
So that's not a sin.
It's not a sin. Self-defense. Self-defense is not a sin, even if it results in death.
So like even if they're not touching me, they're touching my mom.
Yeah, because your life has the same value as your mom's. So it's defending the family. It's defending human life. And yes, you're allowed to take out the guilty party to defend the innocent, choosing, we'll say, the lesser of two evils. All this is the fun we get to explore in morality starting in about 2 weeks.
So what if Gunman Joe goes to Bob to kill him, but Bob doesn't want to kill Kim, but kills Gunman Joe instead out of self-defense? We literally just talked about that.
Might have zoned out for a second. He was pondering the question while I was answering it. There might be a circumstance where, yes, you can immediately turn on. If you feel like Gunman Joe's threat is imminent, on the moment, hot, and there's no time to find an alternate route or another option like contacting police, then
So that's better than just letting him go out of your free will.
yeah, if you think that the threat is legit, serious, and imminent, then yes, you might be there might be a scenario where you turn the gun on
So
Gunman
wait,
Joe.
if you kill Kim, you have a more of a sin.
What would you do in that moment?
Think about your wife.
What would you do?
We're on the show. What would you do? What would you do?
I didn't know there was a show about that.
Yeah.
I the morality I will teach you, the Catholic morality is you don't kill, you take the bullet.
Even if it's somebody you don't know. No, I would. Like you have kids.
You would shoot or take the bullet, Caroline.
Shoot.
You take the bullet?
You would take the bullet.
What if Kim was like, hey, don't worry about it.
It's quick. It's a quick death. Number two.
Not like self-defense, kind of. You're defending yourself by killing him. I mean, I know
It could be. It could be.
So,
But the scenario is you don't have the tools, the skills, the gun to kill Gunman Joe. So you choose as Bob to just take the bullet because killing Joe is not an option.
well, no, that's what I'm saying.
So what about
Okay, we're done.
an assassin that is hired to kill someone?
I hope you're looking forward to morality. I'm just kind of getting you hungry for that semester. Number 2, full knowledge. For a sin to be mortal, you have to know that it is not grave. You have to know that it's a sin. That's important. Make sure you get this wording right, because on the test, if you have to know that it's grave, I'm going to take points off. You have to simply know that it's wrong. Whether or not it's a serious, grave issue or not is different. If you know that what you're doing is wrong, you're freely aware of what you're doing, and that, of course, we're getting to number 3, grave. It's a mortal sin. This is one reason why you don't want to pass a whole lot of judgment on people, because you just don't know what they know. Whatever you might be tempted to judge somebody for, or whatever rumor is going around school after the whatever wild weekend, you just don't know what they know. You don't know all the ins and outs of it. You don't know if they thought it was okay. I once met a woman walking. I can't say I met her. It was through another person. A woman walking in to have an abortion had no idea that there was a living human being inside of her. No idea.
How is she going to get an abortion?
She's going to get an abortion because she thinks that she might be pregnant. She would say that, sure, that's our cultural language, but that pregnancy involves a living being, large, of its own unique DNA as a human being, like completely unaware. You can go have an abortion, certainly a grave matter, certainly maybe do so freely, and it's not a mortal sin. Some people just don't know that it's a living being. I think they're rare, but that can exist. You know, I once plagiarized on a second grade project. They said go home, get a poster board, whatever, and put on display the job that you want to have when you grow up. I went with the policeman. I apparently butchered the project. Teacher sent me home, said do it again. So I just changed my profession to fireman. I got a fireman book out of the library. I basically typed or wrote all the words from the book onto the display board. She says you plagiarized. I don't know what does that mean in second grade, um, I didn't know that was a sin, so what, plagiarism, it is a sin because of stealing.
What if it's accidental?
Well, I just gave an accidental scenario. I would say it's a sin, but it's not mortal.
No, but who wants to mock me?
Let's all be nice. Yeah. Now, whether it's mortal or venial is what we're talking about. Glad we're recording this class. So full knowledge. There was one other instance I was going to say. You got the abortion one. Oh yeah, I think that's it. You get the idea. Number 3 is grave matter. Okay, that's fine. You close it. I was really hot to start a class, so that's why I put it open. You also have a sweater. I got 2 very light layers. Okay, so number 3 is grave matter. That what you're doing has got to be serious. It's got to have real weight. It's got to be a significant offense. Well, Mr. Pale, what does that mean? And that's hard. That's a hard question for me to answer. What I have on the board is that it's got to be a direct offense against the person, but even that can be a little ambiguous or unclear. What traditional Catholic moral theology says is that grave matter constitutes the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments identify for us what is most serious in the eyes of God. So that could answer your question. And so I don't, there's some things that we can say, of course, that are grave. Of course, killing somebody, um, adultery. Most sexual sins are considered grave matter because your sexuality is such a powerful part of your body and your life and your relationships. So sexual sins are typically grave. Um, um, but I don't know. Like the second commandment. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. I think you can definitely do that in a way that is grave and mortal. I also think you can curse, sin, maybe even just say, "Oh my God," in a way that's not mortal. I don't know, but I like to think that there's light offenses against the 10 Commandments, and there's heavy ones, mortal and venial. You good? I thought you had your hand. All right. Last slide of the day is on venial sins. These are sins that weaken our relationship with other people. Now, it doesn't destroy it. You remain friends. You remain in a whatever decent relationship. But you're just not as tight. You're not as united. You're not as happy with them because there's this offense that continually happens. You know, you might be just joking with your friend, poking at him or her about whatever physical feature that they have, and you think it's just a joke, but it's really hurting them every time you do it. Just because you think you're joking doesn't mean it's not a venial sin and hurting them. And that's where you got to learn to be, of course, considerate.